In this video, I'm going to be starting on the castle, which is going to be my biggest project yet. I am not just talking about on YouTube. This is going to be my biggest project of all the times. So I haven't built for a little while, and a lot of things have changed in the building meta. Like, even when I actually did build last, I wasn't really using those techniques. One of them has to do with texturing, and of course, like all good building techniques, it has been invented by Beetle below. How we would texture things before is just like break up the wall a bit, maybe add stuff and patterns, like I can add some cobble here, and just kind of break it up so it's not just all stone. That would be boring up close. But this is pretty interesting up close. Like, I haven't done it perfectly, like this is just a rough thing. Point is, when we step away, this isn't really going to look the same. You can still pick out the individual details, and if you're really looking for it, you can see like, oh, that's stone bricks and that's cobblestone. But it's a lot harder to tell the differences, and if you're just looking at this, like imagine this is part of a much bigger thing, you're not really going to be looking at those individual stone bricks. You're going to be just looking at the overall shape, and there's not really anything that stands out too much. So instead, we can kind of break this up and add these 2x1 bricks. I'm using smooth stone and light gray wool to do that. And I did this in the worst possible place because now I can't place a third brick. There you go. You can kind of get a good idea for how this is going to look. Now, I'm probably going to make the brick concentration higher, but it's kind of hard to put more than 3 on the singular wall. So from up close, it does add some interest. Like, I do like to put extra stone bricks around these, so like that can help them pop out a little better. But instead of just having like a plain, boring gray wall with hardly any noticeable texture, you can actually see, oh, this is meant to be like a brick wall. And if we pillar up here, because I can't see the bottom one, you can actually kind of see where the texturing is on this one. Ignore that. Do not look at that. I definitely recorded this before I built the castle, guys. From up close, it adds some interest, it makes the texture a little better, and from afar, though, you can see because of the brighter textures, and because they're in the same kind of shape as each other, it pops out a lot more, and that's why I'm going to be using that on the towers. Now, I'm not going to be using it on the walls, because I'm not planning on actually, like, having stone bricks and that kind of stuff on the walls. So if we pretend that this wall looks good for a moment, it's like, oh man, that's a nice wall, but it could use some structural support. Well, I'm planning on having these pillars on the sides, which are the same kind of color. Like, I'll even make that a little easier to see by using stone here. Now, I will be using, like, other kinds of blocks to border this, but because I'm separating the stone bricks from the other parts of the build, it actually does stand out. So I think that the texture shapes do work a lot better from afar when you're strict on the boundaries. So those 2x1 bricks, they had to be 2x1 bricks. They couldn't be like splotches of anything, and they had to be used sparingly. On the towers, though, I'm planning on using both the stone kind of blocks and the stone brick kind of blocks, so there's going to have a lot of variation. So it's going to be a little trickier to figure out, like, which blocks I want to use where, and if I'm using too much of one block, if I'm not using enough of one block, it's going to be a challenge. And I'm not saying it was a challenge, because we're pretending that I'm actually doing this in order. You might have figured it out by now, but this mysterious hexagon that's appeared on the floor a few episodes ago is going to be where our castle goes. So figuring out this shape was actually pretty interesting because I didn't have access to my computer at the time. So I just kind of watched back one of my videos and I kind of guesstimated that this should be about 45 blocks long. And that ended up working out perfectly. Like, it's incredible. It works out for so many different reasons. This line can't just be 45 blocks because when you're doing a diagonal, if I just lay this out here, this is a bit longer than this, since blocks are longer on their diagonals than they are on their edges. So I had to do some basic trigonometry. That's right, kids, you should pay attention in math because it's going to help you out. And I found out how wide this should be and how tall it should be. And then I plugged that into a pixel art program and I got this line. And it works out pretty well. You can see it's not consistent. It's not like a pattern you can just memorize. We have 3 sets of 2, then 2 sets of 2, then 3 sets of 2, then 3. And it's pretty simple for 45 blocks long. But there are very few resources for accurately doing a 30-degree angle that actually work out and are easy to interpret. If you are actually interested in doing this somehow, you can ask in the comments and I'll kind of go into more detail there. But if nobody's interested, I ain't bothering to tell anyone, because I'm the only person in the entire world who's interested in doing that. But without further ado, let's go! The build is done, and it's looking incredible. I have spent far too long on this build, so I'm gonna talk about it now. Let's start by talking about these bricks. So we already showed those off before, and I'm only using them in the towers, like I said. So like on these ones, it's a mostly stone-based texture. On these areas, it's like a stone brick-based texture. Like there's literally 3 different blocks other than the deep slate area, which I'll get to. This has a ton of variations. The bricks don't actually stand out a ton up close. Like you kind of see them, but it's mostly from a distance where you can start to see them. And these are my very limited rocket supply, so hopefully this only takes 1 take. But you can see those bricks very clearly from afar. So, oh, I just realized having a lightning rod on here, now that it activates redstone, or I don't know how long it's been activating redstone, but it's gonna turn down these trapdoors. I'll need to change that sometime. So from up close, you can tell, like, oh, that's cobblestone, stone, tough, and all that. From a distance, you can still kind of tell that, but it's a lot less clear, and if we use GD Cam to get a bit farther away, you can see those individual bricks start to take place. Like, I can't really tell from here that there's like cobblestone and stone bricks. I can really just tell that those 2x1 stone bricks are in the walls. And I can also tell of like the moss and these pillars that stand out, because even though they're like similar blocks, like we have stone here and stone bricks here, and you really can't tell those apart from a distance normally, you can really tell because of the distinction here. We have no moss on here, and we have plenty of moss around here. You might notice that these doors are a little different than they were during the time-lapse. Like at the final thing where I was just showing off the build at the end, I actually changed these up because I didn't really like having the trapdoors there. It didn't really look that great and kind of made them stand out a bit too much. And I've achieved this shaping of the stone pillars here by using these glass panes. Now, these are pretty obvious up close, but if we look at the other one, yeah, you can kind of see it, but it doesn't really stick out that much, and it's not really a huge deal, especially when I put an interior on here. It probably won't stick out, like, at all. And also, when you're looking at it from a distance, it's difficult to tell. Now, for this one in particular, I might change it to a dark gray glass pane, since the background is a little darker, but I don't know. We also have this cornerstone kind of thing, which is pretty cool. Going back down, I want to show off this portcullis, which is a fancy term for those castle doors. You see, this is an educational channel. Now, this doesn't actually really make sense. If you, like, extended this portcullis down, all that space up there, it doesn't really fit the rest of the portcullis, so it couldn't actually get all the way down, unless there was some alternative explanation, like, I don't know, having like an extendo portcullis, like in those extendo arms, you know what I'm talking about? That would be pretty epic, and that's my canon, because I make things up in this world. We're just using basalt for this, and at the points, we're having them go into dispensers. I love this little building technique. I want to use it every time I build a castle, having dispensers at the bottom, so that these little spikes have somewhere to go. It's really cool. On the other side, though, I haven't really built most of this out. Like, I built these tops of the towers, but these walls, I'm probably going to end up tearing out large sections of them anyways to fit the buildings in, because I'm going to have buildings, like, lined up to the walls. Like, there's going to be buildings everywhere. And these, cactus, by the way, while I was building that, the cactus farm has been producing like crazy. Like, I've always said, like, this cactus farm is incredible, it's super fast, and I love it. And it's beautiful. Like, I can never take that down. Anyways, the parts that I did build, like these tops of the towers, and that section right there, I know I'm not going to need to tear out, or at least not big sections. I can't imagine what I would tear out the towers for. As for these ice things, this might seem like a weird choice, like especially just to have at the bottom and nowhere else. But the reasoning for the spikes is actually because of lore, although it does look kind of cool, right? You know, it's pretty cool looking. I spent a little while figuring out basically everything on this build, but these ice spikes in particular, I really like the design of. There aren't a lot of options to use with icy, not very saturated and translucent blocks, but the blue glass goes really well with it, like light blue glass. This isn't just blue glass. Anyways, I gotta go to sleep. I need to get a better way of getting out of this place. Anyways, I might extend the spikes upwards a bit later on. And also, like, the shadow areas, I might end up pulling the pillars out a bit. I kind of wanted to do this to, like, show off the texturing and how much you can do with just texture, not actually having to do any real depth. But maybe real depth is a better call here. Like, we could use both in conjunction. By the way, the shadows kind of don't look like shadows if you're thinking about it too much. That's mostly when you get far away, which I can show with Cheaty Cam, that they kind of start to blend in, and you can kind of see them a bit more as shadows. It's still a little weird, but I mean, it kind of works out probably a little better on the walls than on the towers. It's a little strange, but it does get the separation in there that I wanted. I didn't want these to just be towers that go all the way up and do nothing else. I guess I'll just put the lightning rod here for now. I don't know what to do with it, but I also don't want my place to burn down. Now there are some smaller details that I could talk about, like these windows and the transition to the top part and like the gradients on there, but I kind of just want to talk about the roof. We have like a bit of a deep slate gradient going up. Most of the textures here have not been gradients. I've mostly just been doing them like based on what would actually go there realistically, but this one, you know, it's on the roof, so I wanted to draw the eye up a bit, and so it gets a little brighter as you get up. And also it's going to iron bars, which are brighter than all the deep slate stuff, so that kind of helps as well. We start with deep slate tiles, then we go to cracked deep slate bricks and deep slate bricks, and then we move our way up to polished deep slate. And on these intersections, I'm using a mix of granite and copper to get that really nice color, and it kind of breaks it up. It doesn't have too much green, but it also isn't just like boring with all the granite. It gets that nice, well, coppery color that I'm going for. It looks like this building has been here for quite some time, which, if you notice, the moss kind of helps with that as well. But yeah, this isn't a new castle. It's been built a little while ago. I just got jumped by a skeleton up here. I should probably remember to light up my build sometimes. But now let's move on to something that I've been needing to do for quite some time. Commenters on the poll. Now, there's a good chance that not a lot of you actually know what this is, and a lot of the people who have got their names up here aren't watching because, you know, I left a bit ago. But I'm back now, so, you know, hopefully some of these people will recognize their names up here. Also, if I pronounce your name wrong, I'm sorry, but some of you have really weird names, I'm gonna be honest. Samuel, Izu Ashraf, Eva Amaya Drilucia Poochie Poochie, maybe? 17th Colossus, already noted. Just Florb, Drink Melanovic, DX Vid's old channel, Juggy, Frost the Snowman, Lime Speed Crystal, Tim Andreev, and DGF Max. Thank you for commenting and your patience since, you know, it took a while for me to get to you, but it's here now and the room is looking a lot fuller than it did before. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. We've got quite a bit done on the castle. And if I were to guess how long it took to build this whole thing, from the planning to building in creative mode to building it here, I would say it took about 12 hours total, and that's not including recording and editing this thing. So it's probably going to take a little while to get the rest of this done. Now, I would say less than half of that time was spent building in a survival, but it's still a fairly big chunk, so it might take a while to get this whole thing done. And I'm probably just going to be doing a lot of it between episodes. I might have like a mega episode if I feel like building a lot of stuff sometime. For the next episode, I plan to work on my armor set, since this stuff is okay, but ever since I died, it hasn't really been great. Like, we don't even have protection on this one, or feather falling, and yeah, overall, it could just be a lot better. And of course, I also want to get it fully netherited up, and get some drippy armor trims, which might not happen next episode because that would require going to an ancient city for some of them. So that'll be fun. But it's gonna look really cool. But I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you in the next episode.